If you have to remove your GI tract, you have totally failed. Like, you have failed so much at managing your diet. You are so bad at understanding how your body responds to you, because it's like this. The final thing we
Still,
wanted to talk about this time was just inflammation and autoimmune diseases. But did you
yeah.
want
So
to talk about
you
that
pretty
next?
much cured your Crohn's disease, or like it doesn't, you don't have problems with it now at this point. So I had a few comments that were asking about, like, I don't know, like the only thing I really think of when I think autoimmune disease is do an elimination diet and figure out if there's, something triggering the autoimmune response, and kind of like go from there and kind of, pick it apart until you have a diet model that is sustainable, that doesn't cause a spike in whatever the problem is. But I don't know if that is all you can do. Like, obviously there's things that suppress your immune system, which you ideally don't want to be on, I would think. And
Mhm.
ideally you'd want to fix it naturally. But like, a lot of people have autoimmune problems nowadays: Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, Crohn's, blah blah blah, like tons of shit. So obviously, Leo, you have firsthand experience that I feel like would be insightful for the audience, perhaps.
Yeah, so maybe it's useful also to understand what autoimmune diseases are. So in your body, sometimes you have stressors like oxidative stress due to free radicals, or nitrative stress. Or, for example, you can have stress in your body due to dysbiosis in your microbiome. Or, for example, you exercise. Going and exercising causes oxidative stress, which will also cause brain fog for you guys because of that reason. So you have stressors in your body, and these are responded to by things called pro-inflammatory cytokines that are released by your immune system. The issue becomes when you have consistent chronic stressors that cause a consistent release in inflammatory cytokines. Eventually, sometimes in certain people, this causes dysfunction, where the inflammatory cytokines are no longer treating the stressors, but actually attacking your body. So, for example, in arthritis, you may be lifting weights all the time and you might get some kind of oxidative stress on your elbow. Your inflammatory cytokines may be sent out to your joint, and they may damage your joint. That is an autoimmune disease called arthritis. In Crohn's disease, this happens when the microbiome, you have some kind of dysfunction in your microbiome. So, for example, in Crohn's disease or colitis, this happens when your microbiome either has pathologic bacteria or they don't have enough food to eat, like fiber. So they may start nipping at your intestinal lining on your intestines, on the wall. The wall actually has a mucus layer. If they get through the mucus layer, they start attacking the actual intestine. This causes inflammatory cytokines in the body to be sent out from the outside to try to defend against these bacteria. So this kind of thing can create Crohn's disease, colitis. For example, if you'll notice, if people have psoriasis in a man, you'll notice if you do have psoriasis, you'll get psoriasis more around your beard than around your hair. The reason why: there's more bacteria around your beard than around your hair. Your body senses that bacteria and starts attacking your skin from the outside, and your skin sheds. So basically, it's dysfunction where your body's attacking itself. That's the first thing. The second thing, I've characterized the kinds of them. Oh, also, I'd like to mention anxiety is an autoimmune disease as well. You can have your body's inflammatory cytokines causing you to have an anxiety condition also. Just injecting an animal with inflammatory cytokines will make it anxious. That's
Yeah.
one. And I wanted to mention atherosclerosis, which is the deposition of plaque in the arteries, is itself also an autoimmune condition also, because you can have a lot of LDL particles and a low inflammatory condition and may not be deposited into your arteries. But if you're hyperinflammatory, it may be. So that's one thing. The other thing is there are genetics that are relevant. So, for example, in terms of atherosclerosis, if you're an ApoE4 allele carrier, ApoE4 is our ancestral variant. It affects basically how vigilant your body is. So it puts your body in a REL-A dominant state. ApoE4 is great if you're a carnivore and you're eating like that guy Sefridge. What's his name? That guy that eats raw meat? Sefridge?
Saladino.
No, not Saladino. Saladino eats meat, but there's a guy who eats raw meat. I'm sure Steve knows him. He has a weird name with a 3. Anyway, someone will comment down below. But if you're one of those guys, it would be great if you have an ApoE4 variant, because it deals with having bacteria, not cooking your food. All that stuff's great. Once humans started cooking their food, we developed the ApoE3 variant 220,000 years ago, and then the ApoE2 variant 80,000 years ago. And these make us less able to defend against bacteria, but also make our body less inflammatory. So these genetics, for example, could cause you to get atherosclerosis. You may have genetic polymorphisms associated with your actual inflammatory cytokines, like in the tumor necrosis factor alpha gene. You may have some associated with Crohn's disease. So you may have individual polymorphisms that make you more susceptible to a certain kind of autoimmune disease. Like, for example, Chris Bumstead has the kidney problem. I have the GI tract. Someone else has his, Dave Palumbo has his shoulders. So we all have different kinds of things that are being attacked. Now, in terms of how your lifestyle can affect it, number one, if you have a high sympathetic nervous drive, everything will be worse. Your nervous system has 2 states. One is the feed or breed one, the parasympathetic. One is the sympathetic. The sympathetic is your fight or flight system. When you take Trenbolone, that gets turned on. The more you're on that sympathetic state, all the inflammation will be worse. That's the first thing I'd want to mention. The androgenic signaling does this too. The second thing is your diet. So, for example, your eating window. The smaller your eating window is, your gastrointestinal system will work better. The types of food you eat may affect you also. If you have a GI related issue, like Derek said, in some kind of elimination diet where you choose individual foods to add into your diet based on how you respond to them. So just a brief side note on this. Why is that important? So our bodies all respond to foods differently. Someone's body may eat some food and think it's a foreign invader and have an inflammatory response to that food. That's an allergy. An allergy is also an autoimmune condition where your body basically haphazardly thinks you're being attacked when you're not being attacked. So elimination diet, diversity in your microbiome. The key is diversity. You can add probiotic supplements, but you don't want one with 2 kinds of bacteria that are in very high amounts. You want to select them very carefully. You want them refrigerated. You want third-party reviewed ones, and you want to take them consistently.
Have you seen that seed probiotic before?
No.
Which one do you take?
I take 5 different brands like VSL and some other ones. They're refrigerated probiotics. I can send you them later.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
but some people
interested in that.
Some people put their probiotics into yogurt. They try to ferment, they grow their own. I rely on third-party reviewed companies. These are my most expensive supplements, unfortunately, but they're very useful. So you could do that for your microbiome. If it's about atherosclerosis, you can reduce your saturated fat, your dietary cholesterol, so you can develop less of that. In terms of environmental factors, I should also mention that your inflammation in your body will be affected by that too. So air pollution tremendously affects that and affects your glutathione system. Radiation. So for example, just to give you an example of how much localized radiation may affect you. I live in Irvine right now, but in Los Angeles, there's a high school called the Beverly Hills High School, where the rich kids of LA used to go to in the 90s. A lot of those kids developed cancers because the high school was built on top of some kind of oil well or something like that and had an unusual amount of radiation there. So it's important to take account of environmental factors. For example, my wife is pregnant and I've been trying to consider what environmental factors, including food, my wife's food, may impact the health of my child. And I've discovered that air pollution is one of the strongest associates with so air pollution.
What do you think about, sorry, before we skip over the radiation stuff, what do you think about things like Bluetooth being on all the time, things like, random electronics that submit signals and stuff? Do you worry about that stuff too, or are you more worried about like blatant dangers?
So the air pollution studies I'm referring to are referring to things like normal air, like dust, carbon dioxide, things like that.
Right. We've talked about like the HEPA filter stuff before, but I'm more referring to like radiation from devices and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. So regarding that, I don't know if you ever noticed, I posted a story on Instagram about 5G a couple of months ago and got attacked by followers.
No.
So I posted this story because somebody had messaged me asking, is 5G potentially dangerous? And I just wanted to make clear that nobody knows if it's dangerous or not, and that there are academics who are questioning whether it could potentially be dangerous to us. So I posted a paper, and someone who was actually a good follower, he responded back saying like, the lead author is not a biologist, he's an engineer. There's something wrong with the paper. It's a conspiracy. but it's not necessarily a conspiracy. We actually do not know what these waves do to us. And in fact, for a very long time, scientists thought that the telephone waves and all these things would cause damage. In fact, for a long time, they were wondering why there weren't brain cancers when mobile phones came about. They thought that would happen. So a lot of it is through trial and error. So we really don't know. And I assume that they are causing damage. Yeah. Go ahead,
I wonder
sorry.
how much overlapping effect there is from 5G and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and whatever else, and cosmic radiation. I mean, I think people underestimate how much cosmic radiation is actually coming through on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
And when there's like a solar storm, it's enough to put whole cities out or whole countries out because it fries the electric system. Nobody ever worries about that, Like,
it's a great question, a great topic you bring up about the UV from the sun. Actually, I have some clients now in Australia, and I was talking to them about how the sun damages them there. Hello, Ben, if you're watching this. I was talking to Ben about this. And Ben he says that I don't go much out in the sun. And I told him, well, in LA, I feel like the sun is almost as potent. I mean, I haven't been to Australia since I was in my youth, but I feel like LA's sun is not natural. I lived in Dubai for many years, very strong sun. My skin never burnt. In LA, my skin responds weirdly. So I went online, did some research. Turns out in the US, Los Angeles and California have the worst ozone deterioration in the US. And it is really bad. It's really bad. And it's almost comparable to Australia. Yeah. But there's a lot of things in your environment. But back to the root issue. So I tried to give you guys like a top-down view of environment, genetics, different things like that. But let's talk in terms of my own issue, the Crohn's disease. The things that I think, I made a video on this on my channel before, and I wasn't so explicit, but I've thought about it much more since then. I think the things that help the most, and I had changed my lifestyle a lot at once, so I wasn't sure what it was. I know that I made a list. Number one, I know that time-restricted eating had a huge impact. Cutting my eating window down during the day had a massive, massive impact. Changing the foods I ate had a massive impact. In my case, eating grains and sometimes meats also was causing some issues, but I'm not sure entirely what exactly it was in terms of the foods. Fasting, periodic fasting had a huge impact. Every time I do a 4 or 5 day fast before, things would get much better. But it was every month, so I don't know if that was just time passing by. There are two kinds of molecules that help me: free radical scavengers like vitamin C, alpha lipoic acid, NAC, things like that. But then also immunomodulatory molecules like EPA, moringa, sulforaphane, turmeric, garlic, things that make your immune system function a little bit differently, but aren't associated with cancers, like tumor necrosis factor alpha blockers, which are used for Crohn's disease and so on. All the things, almost all the medications used to lower the immune system are associated with cancer, except these, natural molecules. And then in terms of Crohn's disease specifically, having a few probiotic supplements with a variety of bacteria, taking them consistently, and then also taking recently high dose butyrate, which is a fatty acid, has been very helpful. Also,
did you know?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Did you notice that when you came off cycle, that your digestion improved and the status of your Crohn's disease was better under control as well?
In my case, the question was this: I didn't know if going off cycle caused the initial major outbreak of the Crohn's disease.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it happened right after, actually, like 3 or 4 months after.
I thought you had it on cycle as well, because
I thought
a lot of people.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't know what it was. Some people, they're not just, I'm not the type of person that complains a lot. So I would just go into the bathroom and something would happen. It wasn't great, but I wouldn't complain about it, and life would go on. And
Right.
I guess a couple of years went by like that. And then the incident happened after. You were saying a lot of people get that on cycle. They have GI issues.
Yeah, they have digestive issues, and whether that comes from the being in the sympathetic state all the time, especially when you're on trenbolone, or altering your gut microbiome because some of the steroids are so potent they change your stomach acidity, or the synthetic carrier oils that cause systemic inflammation. I honestly think that it contributes to the digestive issues that some of the people experience on cycle as well. Because now that I didn't inject for 4 months, my digestion is 10 times better also.
Yeah, not just that. I mean, the bodybuilding lifestyle, I believe, especially with steroids, is ideal to create autoimmune diseases, and especially GI diseases. It's like perfect. And I wanted to describe this just for the audience to know. If you're a bodybuilder and you messed up your GI tract so much that you had to get your colon removed or your
Mhm.
GI tract removed, like Mandis, for example, there's a coach called Mandis. I have a
Mhm.
video about him coming out this week. I call him the
Okay.
praying Mandis. Anyway, Mandis has removed his GI tract. He has a colostomy bag. And, for example, John Meadows, who I respect tremendously, also
Mhm.
removed his colon. If you have to remove your GI tract, you have totally failed. Like, you have failed so much at managing your diet. You are so bad at understanding how your body responds to you, because it's like this. Removing your GI tract as a person with a disease like mine, Crohn's disease, which is more major
Mhm.
than colitis, by the way. Crohn's is a bigger disease. It's sort of like I'm a diabetic. I don't manage my blood sugar, and then my blood sugar gets stuck in my leg, and I cut my leg off. It's like you're
I think
totally sloppy. You're
I
totally
think
sloppy.
yeah, but I think with John Meadows he experienced a blood clot, and that's why he had to remove part of his colon.
Maybe in John
But
Meadows, maybe in John
yeah,
Meadows' case, but
but
anyone
I
with
don't think
colitis,
it's
I do not
no
talk about blood
management.
clots.
Mm,
Colitis, if you have
yeah,
colitis or Crohn's disease and you remove your GI tract or your colon, it's because you've allowed your body to attack it so much that it
yeah,
totally destroyed it.
yeah.
In my
So is
case,
it pretty obvious when it's happening? Like I wouldn't know, but it's
totally
just like
obvious.
you eat something and then you're just like keeled over pretty much.
No, no, no. The years would go by where you'd be eating and having like diarrhea. You'd
Ah,
always have diarrhea and maybe not have pain. And then you'd have bloating in your midsection because of the dysbiosis. You'd have bloating in your midsection. You'd have a water retention around your midsection. And then you may not notice anything until the pain begins, and then you'll start ignoring it. Keep doing what you're doing, and eventually you'll lose your colon or your GI tract.
mm.
like
In
what the
my case,
hardest it is for my clients is when they're on cycle and a little bit higher dosages is to maintain like a flat stomach,
mm,
right? And we follow a lot of elimination diets, and I always check in. It's like, hey, which food is working, which is not work. Do you get problems later in the day? And then we have to follow all these, trial and error situations just to make sure that the waist stays tapered.
it's
Because I
funny.
see it so much with the guys that come to me, and their diet is all over the place, and they're using all kinds of weird combinations regarding pharmacology, and then it takes them like 3 or 4 months before that waist is under control. Because who wants to come off to get it under control, right?
Yes.
Which in reality, that's probably the best approach to do it. Come off steroids completely, then follow an elimination diet so you know what you can actually eat, and restore your gut microbiome, and then consider another cycle, which is blasphemy, of course, in the fitness industry. But I noticed my digestion is so much better, and it was already improved by following elimination diets, by doing ketogenic diets, by really be really diligent with my food choices. But it's even better following the exact same approach.
It's important for the audience to know that those inflammatory cytokines, when they're attacking your GI tract, you will have that water retention. So it could
Yeah,
be the reason for the bloat that you have in your
yeah,
midsection.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's a clear sign. Well, I think this
And
is
the,
helpful for people.
and the
What do you
synthetic
think about
carryover.
the carnivore diet? So individuals whose gut microbiome is so compromised that they can only tolerate one food source, and it seems to be red meat. Isn't that kind of weird? Like, why would it just be red meat you can tolerate of all
Yeah,
the
it
things?
seems really convenient, let's say, that the